I never thought losing weight would make my family hate me. Growing up, I was always the big kid. While other children were still discovering what made them unique, my weight had already set me apart. I was bigger than my classmates in kindergarten, and by high school there was no denying that I was overweight. Being the fat kid meant being the easy target. I was the punchline of cruel jokes, the one everyone pointed at in gym class, the person who was always last picked for teams. My classmates threw insults at me, laughing at my size as if it were something shameful, something that made me less than them. But the worst part? The bullying didn't just come from school. It came from home, too. My younger sister, Bonnie, was only a year younger than me, but we couldn't have been more different. While I was shy and bookish, she was charming and magnetic. She made friends, effortlessly, the kind of person who could walk into a room and have everyone's attention in an instant. I adored Bonnie. I was her big sister, her protector. When she started high school, I was proud to have her there with me. At first, she seemed to like having me around too, but as she grew older, something changed. She started seeing the way people treated me, the way they teased me, the way they avoided sitting next to me at lunch. And instead of defending me, she decided to join in. At first, it was small things, ignoring me in the hallways, pretending not to know me when she was with her friends. Then it escalated. Bonnie and her new group of friends made a game out of humiliating me. They'd trip me in the cafeteria, burst into my room uninvited, laughing at me like I was some kind of sideshow attraction. I tried to tell my parents, hoping they'd make her stop, but they just laughed. "That's just how siblings are," they said. "Bonnie is just playing with you." But it wasn't playing. It was cruel. The only time I felt seen by my parents was when I got good grades. I was naturally academic, and I worked hard to achieve top scores. That was the one thing my parents valued about me. They bragged about my achievements to their friends, calling me the smart one of the family. Bonnie, on the other hand, hated the comparisons. She wasn't as academically inclined, and she resented being measured against me. So she found her own way to fight back. She stole my homework, sabotaged my assignments, and once, on the night before a major project was due, she even deleted the entire document from my computer. I didn't find out it was her until years later when she drunkenly admitted it. Despite everything, I still loved her. I still wanted to be close to her. But I was beginning to understand something painful. She didn't feel the same way. And our parents, they didn't care enough to notice. After high school, I left for college, hoping distance would help. But nothing really changed. My weight was still the first thing people noticed about me. Even as I built a life for myself, the same insecurities followed me. Then, last summer, my parents invited me home for a family lunch. I was excited. It had been a long time since we'd all been together. But the moment I arrived, Bonnie dropped a bombshell. "I'm engaged," she announced, flashing her ring proudly. We were all surprised. She hadn't even mentioned she was dating someone seriously, but I was genuinely happy for her. I smiled and told her the ring was beautiful, but then Bonnie turned to me, smirking. "So, if your life is so amazing, why are you still fat?" The words hit me like a slap. The room went silent. I forced a laugh, trying to brush it off, but my parents jumped in. "She's right, honey. You really should lose some weight. How are you going? To find a husband looking like this?" They didn't ask about my job, my achievements, or my happiness. No. All that mattered to them was my weight. Then my mother sighed and looked at me seriously. "Bonnie's wedding is a year away. Even if you don't find a man by then, you should at least try to look more presentable." I sat there, stunned. It wasn't enough that they had ignored my struggles growing up. Now they were asking me to change myself just to fit into their idea of what a sister of the bride should look like. I should have been angry. I should have stood up for myself. But instead I just nodded. "I'll try." At first, I started losing weight just to prove them wrong. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about them. I joined a gym, hired a personal trainer, and followed a strict diet. My trainer was incredible. She had gone through her own transformation and knew exactly how to guide me. She helped me stay patient, reminded me that progress wasn't just about the number on the scale, but about feeling good in my own skin. Slowly, the weight started to come off, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. People treated me differently. Strangers were nicer. Colleagues looked at me with newfound respect. I even changed my wardrobe, wearing things I had always been too afraid to try. I cut my hair, dyed it blonde, and embraced a new version of myself, a version of me that I actually liked. With Bonnie's wedding 2 weeks away, my family invited me to another lunch. They hadn't seen me since my transformation. I wasn't sure I wanted to go, but part of me wanted to see their reactions, so I booked a flight home. When I walked into my parents' house, their jaws dropped. They stared at me, speechless. My mother even gasped. "Oh my God, is that you?" I smiled, feeling a surge of pride. They hugged me, complimented me, told me how beautiful I looked. But then Bonnie arrived. At first, she didn't even recognize me. But when I stood up to greet her, her eyes widened. She reached out, pressing her fingers into my stomach as if she couldn't believe the weight was really gone. "Did you get surgery?" she asked suspiciously. I laughed. "Nope, just a lot of hard work and self-love. Something you might want to try sometime." Bonnie's smile faltered. Then my mother chimed in. "You look even more beautiful than Bonnie now." Bonnie's face darkened. The jealousy was clear. Then, as if trying to regain control, my mother said, "Maybe you should dye your hair back to brown. Blonde makes you stand out too much." I realized then they weren't happy for me. They were uncomfortable. They didn't know how to handle my confidence, and for the first time in my life, I didn't care. "You know what?" I said, standing up. "I'm done." Then I walked away from their judgment, away from their expectations, and straight into the life I had built for myself, and I never looked back. I flew back home that very night, leaving behind the toxic energy of my family. As soon as I landed, I turned off my phone, ignoring the flood of messages from my parents and Bonnie. I knew exactly what they were saying, how I was selfish, disrespectful, ungrateful, how I was ruining the family image by not attending Bonnie's wedding. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care. Instead of spending my weekend at a wedding where I knew I'd be judged, belittled, and treated like I was still the awkward fat girl they used to ignore, I decided to celebrate myself. I booked a luxurious stay at a 5-star resort, indulging in a weekend of pure relaxation, a spa day, room service, long walks along the beach. A glass of wine in my hand as I watched the sunset, feeling completely at peace. I had spent my whole life trying to be accepted by my family, but now I realized something important. I didn't need their approval anymore. Bonnie's wedding went on without me. I heard from a mutual friend that people had asked where I was. My mother had to make up an excuse, probably too ashamed to admit that her lesser daughter had finally stood up for herself. And Bonnie, well, she got her special day. But she didn't get the satisfaction of seeing me sitting there, feeling small, feeling less. She didn't get to flaunt her happiness in front of me while trying to make me feel unworthy, because I had taken my power back, and that, more than anything, was the greatest victory. Looking back, I realize how much I let my family's words define me. For years, I believed I was nothing more than my weight. I thought I was only valuable if I fit into the mold they wanted me to be. But I'm so much more than that. I'm strong. I'm successful. I'm confident. And I refuse to shrink myself to make others comfortable. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that makes them feel better. Not your family, not your friends, not society. Be who you want to be, and never apologize for it. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us we are stronger than we think.